All right, let's dive into the complete history of an entire civilization, told through an ancient record. I mean, this is a truly epic story about a group of people who traveled across the world, built this incredible society, and then just vanished.
And their story really makes you ask this one kind of terrifying question. How does an entire people, millions of them, completely wipe themselves out? The story of the Jaredites is basically a search for that answer.
So, where does a story like this even begin? Well, it all starts at a pretty famous moment in the ancient world, one you've definitely heard of, the Tower of Babel.
Right, so at the Tower of Babel, when all the languages are getting scrambled and people are scattered, there's this man known only as the brother of Jared, and he prays with this incredible faith. The result? He, his family, and their friends are spared. Their language isn't changed. And not only that, they're given this amazing divine promise. They'll be led to a new promised land.
Now, to get there, they have to build a fleet of special barges for a journey across the ocean. But these weren't your typical ships. Not even close. The record says they were built exceeding tight, even that they would hold water like unto a dish.
So what that means is they were basically submarines. I mean, they were designed to be tossed around by massive waves and even go completely underwater. But that design creates this huge, life-threatening problem. No windows, no fire allowed on board. They'd be sealed in absolute, total darkness.
Which brings them to a massive challenge. I mean, think about it. How in the world do you bring light into a sealed-up vessel for a journey that could last who knows how long? Well, the solution comes from just this incredible act of faith. The brother of Jared melts 16 clear, glass-like stones from a mountain, takes them to the summit, and asks God to touch them so they'll shine. And the record says because of his exceeding faith, that's exactly what happens. He creates a continuous source of light for their entire journey.
And boy, did they need it. For 344 days, they were just driven by this furious wind, thrown around on the waves, often completely submerged, surviving inside these watertight ships lit by nothing but those miraculous glowing stones. So after all that, they finally arrive in the New World. And right away, they're given a covenant. You can think of it as an everlasting rule that's going to define their whole existence. And it's both a blessing and a curse.
The deal was pretty straightforward. Two clear paths. The promise was, serve God and you'll be the most prosperous, free nation on earth. The curse was just as simple. If the people become totally wicked, they will be utterly swept off the land. The stakes just could not be higher.
And almost immediately, you see this tension pop up. The people decide they want a king. But their founder, the brother of Jared, gives this really stark warning. He says, surely this thing leadeth into captivity. He could already see the danger of putting all that power in one person's hands.
But despite the warning, what do? They get their king. And this one decision sets in motion this tragic, repeating pattern that's going to define the next 2,000 years of their entire history.
And here it is, the story of their civilization in 5 steps. It always starts with righteousness, which brings them incredible prosperity. Then, that prosperity leads to pride and wickedness. And that, in turn, opens the door for these secret conspiracies to form and grab power. Prophets show up to warn them, but the people just ignore the warnings, which leads to war and destruction. Now, sometimes they'd repent, and the cycle would restart, but the overall trend was always downward.
So what was it? What was the specific cancer that kept dragging them down over and over again? Well, the record points to one thing above all the others.
They're called secret combinations. You can think of them as a mix of organized crime and a corrupt political machine. They're described as these secret groups, bound by ancient oaths to protect each other, while they murder, steal, and lie to get power and to get rich. The record actually traces them all the way back to a wicked plot hatched by a king's daughter and a man named Ikish.
And this right here is the key. These weren't just a few fringe groups we're talking about. Over time, the influence of these secret societies just grew and grew until they became the main political and cultural force in the land. They were literally an engine of corruption that poisoned the entire nation from the inside out.
And all that corruption, all that poison, it eventually leads to the final act for the Jaredite people, a war of total, complete extinction.
A final prophet. His name is Ether. He goes to the very last king, Coriantumr, with one of the most specific and chilling prophecies you'll ever read. He lays out 2 choices: repent and everything saved. Refuse and every single one of your people will be destroyed except for you.
You alone will live to see it all happen, and tragically, Coriantumr and his people refuse to repent.
The war that followed wasn't a normal war. Society completely dissolved. It became pure anarchy, just every man with his band fighting for that which he desired. Eventually, all these little gangs consolidated into two giant armies that were just bent on destroying each other.
The scale of the destruction it's just almost impossible to imagine. As that prophecy unfolded, 2 million of King Coriantumr's mighty men were killed in battle. But then the record adds this absolutely gut-wrenching detail. That number, 2 million, did not include their wives and their children, who were also slaughtered.
So after years of this relentless fighting, the entire nation is gone. In the final duel between the last two leaders, Coriantumr kills his rival, Shiz, and then he collapses, the last man alive from a civilization of millions, just like the prophet Ether had said would happen.
But the story doesn't just end there as a tragedy. The narrator who put the record together, a man named Moroni, he adds a direct warning for the future. He basically says, look, the whole reason this story was saved was to warn any nation that allows these same murderous combinations, these groups built to get power and gain, to rise up and take control.